Hello, I am Jayanto Chatterjee from IIT Kanpur, and as you know, we are going to be together for the next 4 weeks on this course titled Management of Field Sales. And the first week, that's this week, over 5 sessions, I'm going to discuss with you the fundamentals of the selling process, the character of customers, the buying process as connected with the sales process, and finally, we will introduce the next part, which deals with the value creation and value delivery. All these terminologies will become clearer as we proceed. So in this first session, you have to understand, and I'm assuming here that many of you would have done my previous course, which is Marketing Management Part 1. In Marketing Management Fundamentals, you would have been introduced to the concept of marketing mix, which means the 4 aspects of the execution of the marketing process. And as you know, that those concepts are related to product, price, place, and promotion. But before I come to that, let me talk about some new fundamentals, particularly related to this course, which is the first one is customer value, which means that anybody buys not a product, not a service, but basically a bundle of values. And values here means, value with plural means the set of properties, set of functionalities which a customer finds useful or valuable. So at this stage, right, to start with, what you must understand is that sales is the process of delivering the value from the seller to the buyer. And this value exchange, value delivery is the fountainhead. Profit emerges from that activity if useful exchange has taken place. And the sheer or just the only exchange of value is not sufficient in today's world. In today's world, you have to create customer delight through the process of this value delivery. That means once the bundle of values that you have delivered through your product service combination that has been consumed and that has delighted the consumer customer, then the next stage that also today we seek for successful field sales is where the customer becomes your advocate. That means the customer will become a reference for further sales. Your customer will talk about the delight that the customer has received by buying your bundle of values through product and service functionalities and attributes. So please look at your slide, the first one, and understand therefore that the sales fundamentals are customer value creates sales, value delivery process is the sales process, profit in a way is a result, is the effect and not the cause. The cause is the successful and useful exchange of values. And then the point is that just exchange is not enough. That exchange must create customer delight. And lastly, the delight should be developed to a level that the customer becomes an advocate, because the customer talks on social media. So in today's connected era, the customer must become your advocate to create a powerful sales process, satisfactory result from your sales process. Now, this two sets of concepts that we just discussed have actually evolved out of a period of guiding concepts. In the early stage, before 1970s, sales, I think I introduced this in the introductory video, that the sales earned a sort of bad name because sales was synonymous with push. Sales was often blamed that it actually pushed or cajoled the customer to acquire products which were not exactly useful, were not even often required. So, as I mentioned in the introductory session, that this type of sales happened because the entire process was dominated by large-scale manufacturing trying to get rid of its stock, make more and more, and push more and more was the sort of driver concept at that time. And it created somewhat ill feeling. Customers didn't want to meet salespeople because they often found it a botheration. And in 1970 onwards, it was clear that that sales process, the push type of sales process, was creating more problems than solutions. And therefore, the new era emerged, which we call the consultative selling, which means the salespersons understood that the selling was just not entertaining the customer or cajoling the customer or even sometimes conning the customer. It was understood that for long-term relationship, and we will just discuss that why relationship is so important and is the fundamental concept of the sales process today, that to create that trust-based relationship, to create the respect for the salesperson, it became necessary, and it remains necessary today, that the salesperson should be expert at diagnosing the problem situation, understanding customers' pains, deeply appreciating customers' problems to which the customer is seeking resolution. This came from the fundamental understanding that value for the customer is the process of resolving customers' pains, meeting customers' needs, and doing that in a gainful manner, in a superior manner, in a better manner, the solution to the customer problem. So as you see here, as we have written in the second block, as you see, that sales people are becoming diagnosticians of customers' needs, and the customer must look up in a way. The customer must appreciate and seek out the salesperson as a consultant, offering good recommendations, well-considered recommendations. And as soon as you talk about creating a bundle of values, you understand that it has to be customized. The same bundle of values will not be that valuable for all customers. So here came the concept of customized packages for target customers. So this segmentation and targeting also became very important for successful sales process. So 1990 onwards, we call this time, I would say 1990 to the early part of this century, maybe 2005, for about 15 years, the consultative selling also meant strategic selling. The strategic point came from this proper segmentation, proper targeting. The targeting and segment matching was the strategic part. So we often now then started calling the value proposition as SVP, or strategic value proposition. The word strategic was added because one looked at not only immediate values but also values over a period of time. Therefore, it was needed to find out, it was needed to appreciate that what the customer problem really was, not by just some immediate data, but in the bigger perspective of customers' own market, customers' own organization and the organization's position in the overall market, and where the customer was going. So strategic value proposition meant that you had to walk with the customer, you had to synchronize with the customer's position today and going forward to tomorrow. And therefore, it was important to understand the customer strategy to match the value proposition that you brought forward, because it was understood at that stage that in most cases, because sales, respectable sales, strategic sales, consultative sales happened when you contributed to the customer's success paradigm. So customer success was the fountainhead of your success as a salesperson. This understanding and execution of this understanding or realization of this understanding through various mechanisms, various steps, various sub-processes was this equation that you see on the right hand side, that product positioning for the target segment is equal to developing and delivering a package of strategic values. And as I mentioned, that subsequently, as on today, where customers are connected in so many different ways to other customers, the customer is almost 24/7 connected to society at large, market at large. And therefore, this situation offers an opportunity that through creating delight, superlative level of satisfaction, you can have the customer talk about your products and services. The customer can become your sales partner. This situation, which we call earning customer advocacy, is what we are talking about in the concept of co-marketing, which you see in the lower left. Some of the concepts that, or rather more advanced understanding we will be discussing going forward, is that this creation of delight need not be at the cost of increasing sales expenses. We can create a lean sales so that, after all costs finally get reflected in the price that the customer pays in most cases. And if you can reduce your cost, you can pass that benefit on to the customer. And therefore, by reducing your sales and marketing processes, the cost of sales and marketing through a lean process, you can actually increase the level of values. That means the customer's purchase can become more economic, and that's the concept of lean sales. That means a very efficient sales process, not a fluffy sales team, but a very sharp, very pointed, very targeted sales effort and sales team. And the other concept which you see on the right hand side is the concept of adaptive selling, which means actually adapting to the situation of a particular target customer segment and developing strategic value proposition for that particular segment. We will discuss this in more detail. At the moment, you please try to understand that in today's market situation, not only the effort to make the customer as your partner is very important, but it is also important to do that at an efficient cost level. So by creating a lean sales process and an adaptive sales process. Now let's get a little deeper and let's try to understand that sales is a part of the overall system of value delivery from the maker, from the seller to the buyer, to the consumer. In the marketing mix, which I talked about a little earlier, these four elements are there: product, price, promotion, and place. And you have to understand that field sales, which we are studying through these sessions, as you see from the title of this course, field sales, managing field sales, relate to the two elements which are in the second line, promotion and place. So sales, field sales, is a kind of promotion. It complements other promotion like advertising or public relation. But at this stage, you must also understand that within the different types of promotion or within the package of promotion, field sales is the most expensive element. It's also the most effective element. But because it is the most expensive element, it also has become necessary, as I was just now talking, to create a lean sales process. But please try to understand, therefore, that the field sales is like the army going forward and creating control over a domain. But the army has to go hand in hand with the air force and other types of forces. So therefore, sales works hand in hand with advertising or public relations or all different other kinds of promotional approaches. And it has a very close relationship with place, that is distribution. So in this course, we will focus more on the sales part, but in a future module, we will expand and relate sales with distribution, that means promotion with place, and try to understand that in marketing these are concepts, in field sales these are processes of realization of the concepts. So selling, the first most important part today's situation, is that selling is consultation. Selling is trust creation, where the salesperson understands the customer's real pains and creates a gainful way of meeting those needs. So this understanding of pain and gain and delivering through a two-way communication process, this exchange is today's sales process, trust-based sales process, relationship-oriented sales process. And it's very important that service becomes a very dominant logic in today's sales process. That means the various kinds of intangible parts, like understanding of the customer emotional needs, not only logical needs but also emotional needs, understanding customers' lifestyle and values, and matching all those needs is different kinds of service bundles that make today's field sales, consultative field sales, a paradigm shift where the salesperson is not found irritating, or the salesperson does not immediately create a sense of distrust, but on the other hand, just the opposite. A situation, a good strategic sales situation creates the customer wanting to meet the salesperson, to interact with the salesperson, because the customer trusts that the person is going to understand my problem and is going to come up with an effective set of solutions. So this solution approach, that means product service combination, or we sometimes say product service system, is what today's sales is all about, which obviously means that the sales process does not end with just the exchange across the counter or just the delivery of the product, but it remains the seller's responsibility to see and hold customers' hand if necessary and see through the entire after sales process. So earlier we used to call after sales as a service, was considered as a separate sort of sets of activities, was often neglected. But today it is a continuum. And this understanding of the evolution of sales process, which I just discussed, and understanding that sales is a system, a continuum from the early identification of customers' real needs, both logical needs as well as emotional and other lifestyle value-oriented needs, delivering a package of values which meets the customer's requirement today and will continue to meet customers' requirement going forward, will become a part of customers' success journey, is the core of field sales management today. The diagram that you see now is the model that will guide this 4 weeks course. As you see, at the center is the concept of partnering with the customer to create value. It is enveloped by ethics. This has become very important because, as I mentioned, in the earlier days, before 1970s, in some way, salespersons were socially looked down upon because they were considered as con men, they were considered as tricksters. And today it has become necessary through the sales ethics, which we will discuss all its different aspects. So through an ethical sales process, one has to meet customers' real needs of today, needs going forward, has to deliver product and service as an integrated solution, and therefore, ultimately, based on trust, a relationship has to be created. And so customer strategy is synonymous with trust-based relation creation and relation retention strategy. These we will expand. These concepts we will investigate in details over the next sessions. Thank you.